My niece, Maria, cut me off completely after her parents died. She ignored all my calls, messages, and letters. It wasn't just her being a rebellious teenager, she was 21, old enough to know what she was doing. I wasn't just her uncle. I had practically raised her after my brother and his wife died in a car accident. I did my best to give her a good life, even though I wasn't rich. And then, out of nowhere, she just disappeared. No explanation, no fight, nothing. For 2 years, I tried reaching out, hoping she'd remember who was there for her. But then, just when I'd given up hope, I got a text from her. Hey, I need the family estate transferred to my name. Not even a hello or sorry for ignoring you. Just a demand. I wasn't going to let that slide. So, I told her to come over so we could talk. She showed up the next day with a lawyer. Maria looked completely different, fancy clothes, perfect nails, styled hair, not the same girl who used to wear old band t-shirts and jeans. She walked right past me into the house and said, "We just need you to sign." The lawyer opened his briefcase and started talking about how the estate was supposed to be hers once she became an adult, but there were legal issues at the time of her parents' death, so it was put in my name temporarily. Now they wanted me to sign it over to her. I kept my cool and said, "That's not how this works." The lawyer just smirked and kept explaining their plan. Maria finally looked at me, but her eyes were cold and expectant. She mentioned her fiancé like I should have already known about him. I walked over to my desk, pulled out a folder, and handed it to them. "You should read these first." Maria rolled her eyes but took the papers. As she read them, her confidence faded. The lawyer's expression changed from smug to worried. "What is this?" Maria snapped. I calmly replied, "That's the updated will your father made 2 months before he died." Her face went pale. "That's not possible." "Oh, it is," I said. "Your dad and I talked when you were 16. He was worried about you." The lawyer's voice had lost its confident tone. "This will cancels the old one." "Exactly," I said. "It says the estate stays in my name forever, and there are conditions you have to meet before you can even think about getting it." Maria's hands shook as she held the papers. "That's not fair." "It's legal," I replied. The lawyer snapped his briefcase shut. "Mr. Whitaker, we'll be taking this to court." "Go ahead," I said, smiling. Maria glared at me. "You had no right." "I had every right, and you know it," I shot back. She slammed the papers on the table and growled, "This isn't over." "I know," I said, "but before you leave, read the next page." She picked it up and her face went white. She clutched it like her life depended on it. The lawyer tried to grab it, but she held on tight. I watched as she finally realized what it meant. That page was the final blow, and the best part? She had no one to blame but herself. Maria's face went white as she held the paper tightly. She kept reading it over and over, like she was trying to make it say something else. The lawyer leaned over her shoulder, reading too. His lips tightened, which told me everything I needed to know. They both realized she was in trouble. You tricked me," Maria stammered, her voice cracking. I let out a short laugh. "Tricked you?" "No, Maria. I just did what your father asked. I honored his last wishes." Her hands clenched into fists. "This can't be real. He would have told me." I stared at her, waiting for her to realize the truth. If her father didn't tell her, it was because he didn't want her to know. The lawyer took a deep breath and stood up straight. "Mr. Whitaker, we'll need a copy of these papers to check if they're real." "Sure," I said, grabbing a copy from the filing cabinet. "Take your time." Maria didn't say anything. She just stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the papers like they betrayed her. Then, she stormed out. The lawyer followed, looking cautious. At the door, he turned back. "Expect to hear from us soon." I smiled. "I'm looking forward to it." The battle had started. I knew she would fight, but I didn't expect her to go this far. The first move came quickly, a letter from her lawyer demanding the estate be transferred to her, claiming the new will was fake because I'd supposedly influenced her dad. I ignored it. Then came phone calls, first from the lawyer, then Maria, and even her fiancé. I blocked all of them. But then, things got serious. One morning, I found the front door of the estate wide open. At first, I thought I had just forgotten to lock it, but something felt off. I stepped inside and saw the mess. My office was destroyed, papers were everywhere, drawers pulled out, my desk flipped over, and the filing cabinet where I kept important documents had been broken into. I felt a chill run through me. Someone broke in, and I was pretty sure I knew who was behind it. I called the police, reported the break-in, and told them about the missing documents. They asked if I had cameras. I didn't. That was my mistake. But here's what Maria didn't know. I never kept the real documents at the house. They were locked up safely at the bank. What they stole were just copies. Maria wanted to play dirty, so I decided to play even dirtier. Going to the police wouldn't help without proof. So, I went to see the estate's lawyer, Harold Pierce. He was old, smart, and not easily scared. Harold, I need to make some changes, I said, dropping into the chair across from his desk. His eyes narrowed. Maria causing trouble? I nodded. He sighed. I warned your brother this might happen. We spent the next 2 hours going through every legal option we had. By the time I left his office, I had something Maria wasn't expecting, a restraining order. If she wanted to fight, she'd have to do it from far away. But I thought that would be enough to keep her away. I was wrong. 3 days later, I got a call from Harold. His voice was tense. Maria just filed a lawsuit. I almost laughed. For what? Fraud. She's claiming the will was forged. I went silent. Then I rubbed my forehead. Tell me you're joking. I wish I was, Harold said. A fake will? That was serious. If she managed to convince a judge to even consider it, I could lose everything. But Maria made one huge mistake. Maria thought she had me cornered, but I was ready for her. I had one last document she didn't know about. It was the proof of her betrayal, and once I showed it to the court, it would destroy her. I wasn't waiting for Maria to make her next move. If she wanted to accuse me of forging the will, I'd make sure she regretted it. I made a call to Douglas Grayson, the lawyer who helped my brother write his final will. He was retired now, but I knew he'd remember something important. The signing of the will was recorded. My brother was smart. After dealing with a nasty legal fight over our parents' estate, he made sure there would be no confusion over his wishes. So, when he changed his will, he had Douglas videotape the signing. I had seen the tape before. It was clear and simple. My brother was weak, lying in a hospital bed, but his mind was sharp. He looked straight at the camera and said, I am of sound mind. This is my will. No one is forcing me to change it. Then he signed it, the witnesses signed, and the lawyer notarized it, all on camera. Maria had no idea this proof existed, and now, I was going to use it. The lawsuit moved fast. A few weeks later, we were standing in front of a judge. Maria sat across from me, looking confident in her fancy designer clothes, but her clenched jaw and tight grip on her fiancé's hand showed her nerves. Her lawyer spoke first. Your Honor, we believe Mr. Whitaker pressured the deceased into changing his will. We think the document was either faked or tampered with. The judge looked at me. Mr. Whitaker, do you have evidence to prove your side? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor, and it will clear this up completely. I nodded to Harold, who handed over a flash drive. The bailiff brought it to the judge. Please play the file called Final Will Recording, Your Honor. Maria froze. The room went silent as the video played. My brother's tired but clear voice filled the room. I am of sound mind. This is my will. No one is forcing me to change it. The camera showed the signatures, the notarization, and the witnesses confirming what happened. Maria's lawyer looked like he had just swallowed a bitter pill. The judge looked at Maria. Miss Whitaker, do you still want to continue your claim of forgery? Maria's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Her lawyer whispered urgently to her, probably telling her to drop it before things got worse. But Maria was too angry to think straight. She shot up from her seat. I was lied to. The judge raised an eyebrow. By whom? By him. She pointed at me. He controlled everything. My father trusted him too much. Maria, the video, I started. I don't care about the video, she snapped. This isn't over. The judge frowned. Miss Whitaker, I suggest you listen to your lawyer before you say anything else that could hurt your case. But Maria wasn't listening, and that's when she made her biggest mistake. The case should have ended there, but Maria was more interested in revenge than the truth. The next morning, I woke up to find my phone blowing up with notifications. Maria had posted a long, emotional rant on social media, claiming I stole her inheritance and left her broke while I enjoyed the wealth meant for her. She played the victim perfectly and made me look like a greedy, controlling uncle. And people believed her. Her post went viral, with thousands of comments, shares, and messages. Strangers called me a monster. I even got threats. But Maria made a huge mistake. She left out one important detail. She wasn't broke at all. Maria had been living in a luxurious penthouse in Miami. It was bought 6 months earlier under her fiancé's name. Where did the money come from? It turned out she had already drained her parents' other bank accounts. There were savings, investments, and even a trust fund meant for Maria when she turned 30. She wasn't supposed to touch it until then, but she found a way to get the money early. I had all the proof I needed: bank transfers, withdrawal records, and even a document signed by her fiancé showing they moved the money into an offshore account. Maria wasn't broke. She was a liar, and now, I had the evidence to bring her down. I let Maria have her moment of fame. She was soaking up all the sympathy. Then, I released everything. I leaked all the proof, screenshots of her bank transactions, evidence of her taking money from the trust fund, even a photo of her standing on the balcony of her fancy penthouse in Miami, holding a wine glass. The photo came from her own fiancé's social media. People online turned on her fast. They went from defending her to calling her a thief. Memes mocking her appeared everywhere, but that wasn't her biggest problem. The bank saw the leaks, too. The trust fund had strict rules. Taking money from it early was a crime. Now, Maria wasn't just losing sympathy, she was facing real legal trouble. Maria was out of options. The bank got involved quickly. They froze her accounts and started investigating. Her lawyer, who was so confident before, dropped her as a client. Even her fiancé disappeared, deleting his social media and acting like he never knew her. Then, it happened. I was at home when I heard desperate, frantic knocking at my door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Maria stood there, looking terrible. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled, her hair was a mess, and her eyes were red and smeared with mascara. She pushed past me, her voice shaking. "You ruined my life." I closed the door. "No, Maria, you did." She spun around, her eyes wild. "I trusted you. I thought you would take care of me. Instead, you..." "Stop." I cut her off. "Don't act like the victim. You stole from your father's trust fund. You lied to everyone. You only came to me when you needed money. You made your choices. Now, you don't like the consequences." For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Uncle, please," she whispered. "I have nothing left." I sighed, feeling tired. "You need to leave, Maria." "What?" she stammered. "You need to go. I can't help you." "I won't." She shook her head, panic rising. "You're all I have left." "No," I said, stepping back. "I was all you had left, and you threw that away." Her face crumbled. She looked like I'd just punched her. Maria wiped her face angrily. "Fine, I don't need you anyway." She stormed out. I didn't stop her, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Maria didn't go to jail. The bank didn't want a long, messy trial, so they made a deal. She had to pay back all the money, every single cent. That meant selling everything she had, her car, jewelry, even the penthouse. She was broken alone. She tried reaching out to me with messages. They sounded different, less demanding, more desperate. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Maybe one day, if she truly changed and understood what real accountability meant, I'd consider talking, but not today.